Today is January 6th, 2024. The time is 11:39 a.m. This is an article out of HuffPost. Israeli Defense Minister announces siege on Gaza to fight human animals. Updated October 9th, 2023. Israel's defense minister on Monday announced a complete siege of Gaza, describing the Palestinian fighters who attacked Israel over the weekend as human animals. Defense Minister Yoav Gallant called for more destruction on top of the massive number of airstrikes Israel has launched into the Hamas-ruled territory of 2.3 million people in retaliation for Hamas's surprise attack this weekend that left more than 700 people in Israel dead. Israel formally declared war on the Hamas militant group on Sunday, pointing to the large military mobilization that has already killed nearly 500 people in Gaza, including women and children. Hamas claims it has taken about 100 captives from the attacks. We are fighting human animals, and we act accordingly, Gallant said. While it appears that Gallant was specifically referring to Hamas fighters in that comment, the rest of the minister's remarks call for further oppression of all people in Gaza by denying them basic human needs. We are imposing a complete siege on Gaza, Gallant said. There will be no electricity, no food, no water, no fuel. Everything will be closed. Times of Israel. Energy minister instructs authorities to cut off water to Gaza. October 9th, 2023. Energy Minister Israel Katz announces that he has instructed authorities to cut off water to the Gaza Strip. I instruct that the water supply from Israel to Gaza be cut off immediately, Katz said in a statement, adding that the flow of power and fuel was ceased 2 days ago. Here is an article from the CNN. Israel says no electricity, water, or fuel to Gaza until Hamas returns hostages. Gaza will not be provided with any electricity, water, or fuel until Israeli hostages being held by Hamas are returned home. Israeli Energy Minister Israel Katz said Thursday. No electrical switch will be turned on, no water hydrant will be opened, and no fuel truck will enter until the Israeli abductees are returned home. Humanitarian for humanitarian, and no one will preach us morals, Katz wrote on X, formerly Twitter. This is an article from the United Nations. Gaza, forcing patients to flee hospitals. A death sentence, warns WHO. The statement came as the Israeli imposed deadline for 1.1 million civilians to leave the northern part of the enclave ahead of what is expected to be a major advance into Gaza by Israeli ground forces expired. UNRWA shelters in Gaza and northern Gaza are no longer safe. This is unprecedented, said the statement. The agency reminded that according to the rules of warfare, civilians, hospitals, schools, clinics, and United Nations premises cannot be a target. UNRWA is sparing no efforts to advocate with parties to the conflict to meet their obligations under international law to protect civilians, including those seeking refuge in UNRWA shelters, the agency emphasized. UNRWA pointed out that many of the vulnerable, particularly pregnant women, children, the elderly, and persons with disabilities, simply will not be able to flee south. They have no choice and must be protected at all times. Taps run dry. UNRWA Chief Philip Lazzarini said that with water supplies running dry due to Israel cutting off all utilities to Gaza, it has become a matter of life and death. It is a must. Fuel needs to be delivered now into Gaza to make water available for 2 million people, he said. More than 1,300 people were killed in Israel after Hamas fighters raided settlements close to Gaza last Saturday. In response, more than 2,200 have been killed during Israel's aerial offense on Gaza, according to Palestinian authorities. On Friday, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said it would be impossible for civilians in Gaza to comply with the evacuation order without devastating humanitarian consequences. The UN chief called on the world to unite in support of the fundamental principle of protecting civilians and finding a lasting solution to this unending cycle of death and destruction. This is an article from a United Nations Relief Workers Agency. UNRWA Commissioner General Filippi Lazzarini remarks on the situation in Gaza Strip. October 15th, 2023. Good evening to all. Many thanks for being here tonight. I have called for this press conference to raise the alarm that as of today, my UNRWA colleagues in Gaza are no longer able to provide humanitarian assistance. As I speak with you, Gaza is running out of water and electricity. In fact, Gaza is being strangled, and it seems that the world right now has lost its humanity. If we look at the issue of water, we all know water is life. Gaza is running out of water, and Gaza is running out of life. Soon, I believe, with this, there will be no food or medicine either. There is not one drop of water, not one grain of wheat, not a liter of fuel that has been allowed into the Gaza Strip for the last 8 days. The number of people seeking shelter in our schools and other UNRWA facilities in the South is absolutely overwhelming. And we do not have any more the capacity to deal with them. My team, who relocated to Rafah to sustain operations following the Israeli ultimatum, is working in the same building as thousands of desperate displaced people, rationing also their food and water. In fact, an unprecedented humanitarian catastrophe is unfolding under our eyes, and already we should always remember that before the war, Gaza was under a blockade for 16 years, and basically more than 60% of the population was already relying on international food assistance. It was already before the war a humanitarian welfare society. Every hour we receive more and more desperate calls for help from people across the strip. We, as UNRWA, have already lost 14 staff members. They were teachers, engineers, guards, and psychologists, an engineer, and a gynecologist. Most of our 1,300 UNRWA staff and in the Gaza Strip are now of our displaced or out of their homes. My colleague Kamal lost his cousin and her entire family. My colleague Helen and her children were pulled out of the rubble. I was so relieved to learn that they were still alive. My colleague Ines fears that Gaza will no longer exist.